If you'd been here on Tower Hill on the morning of Sunday, the 9th of April 1747, the scene was alive with activity. As was usual when a public beheading was to take place, a gigantic crowd of some 5,000 to 6,000 had assembled, and some 1,200 soldiers were on scene to keep order. Right about here, on the junction, hundreds were packed onto a wooden scaffolding that stood many stories high to gaze down at this infamous spot, where dozens of other executions had already taken place. A wooden stage had been erected here, with the block fixed upon it, and a coffin draped in black cloth had been placed on stage beside it. It was fitted with brass nails, it was said, and was inscribed with a message. Simon Lord Fraser of Lovat, it said, in Latin, died April 9th, 1747, aged 80 years. A prominent member of Scottish Parliament, Simon Fraser was the 11th Lord Lovat, but had been sentenced to death at Westminster Hall the previous month for his part in the Jacobite Rising of 1745, which was an attempt by Charles Edward Stuart, who was the grandson of James II, to have George II removed from the throne and replaced with his father. Originally sentenced to be hanged, drawn and quartered, Fraser's sentence had since been commuted to a mere beheading. But with the time drawing near, the atmosphere was growing tense. Only moments away at the Tower of London, however, Fraser, by all accounts, was taking it surprisingly well. He had kept his good sense of humour, it was reported, ate a very hearty breakfast of minced veal, and then, as 11 o'clock approached, was taken to a house by the execution spot to prepare himself. But it was at that moment that the first disaster then happened. Under the weight of those packed onto it, the wooden platform on the junction collapsed, killing as many as 20 people and leaving dozens of others with broken bones. Regardless, Fraser was then brought out at around 11:45 and walked up onto the stage without showing the least sign of fear. He stopped to read the inscription on his coffin, and then, after briefly speaking to those around him, took off his hat, coat and waistcoat. But with mangled spectators still being pulled from the wreckage of the platform, a dangerous crush was now taking place in the crowd. At least one woman was killed, while a young boy was trampled to death by a soldier's horse, and on watching it from the stage, Fraser, reportedly, was visibly amused. As he placed his head upon the block, he actually seemed to be laughing, and continued to laugh right up until the moment that executioner John Thrift, with one swing, severed his head from his body in what would be the last public beheading to ever take place in the UK. Where exactly Fraser was then buried remains a mystery, but his execution, interestingly enough, is believed to be where the phrase "laughing your head off" comes from. Leave a like on the video, and I'll see you back here next week for another Morbid Monday.